Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Shadowverse. Today is Monday, August 10th. We're starting a little late today, and that has a lot to do with the fact that even though I was feeling under the weather, I felt like I had probably the flu or something over the weekend, I was able to do a couple of pre-recorded episodes of the main story of Shadowverse, and then I got to the point that I am now absolutely gatekeeped and stuck at, which is defeating the final boss. Unlike any of the previous episodes, I'm at episode 12 here. There might be 2 more episodes past this point. There might be several more of these, actually. There might be as many as 5 more of these that unlock. But unlike the previous sections, where you could just skip the battles, which has saved me tons of time and let me do tons of pre-recorded episodes, you can't skip the battles here. So I spent 5 hours after spending 2 hours on screen trying to beat the boss with pre-built decks. None of the pre-built decks worked. I don't have any cards to beat it. So I'm coming in on rare form, certainly, because I am somewhat frustrated with that. It just ends the pre-recording of the main story almost at the end, but not quite. Just leaves it kind of as an uneventful thing. I still have some solo practice missions that I'll make an episode or 2 around. But also, because of doing all that, that delayed me doing the arena. That and being sick delayed me doing the arena, so I may have missed an arena day. It delayed me doing any daily quests, and you can see these daily quests are now off by 10 hours. I mean, I am making progress as far as getting the animated things. One thing I think worth mentioning is that in the story, they give each of the characters a new look, each of the main leaders.
I've turned over a new leaf.
And these characters I thought were just 4th anniversary, like, hey, we're gonna let you change the look of our characters. But instead, they're fairly greedily charging you money. Like, Eris here looks completely different than the way Eris does, whereas Yuan looks a little bit more anime, Urias looks a little bit anime. They've changed Luna a little bit to be more anime. I think they spiked up Rowan's hair and changed his armor to be more silver. They changed Isabel's. Actually, I never saw Isabel transform. There's a whole transformation sequence. And this is a good idea, but this really should have been free. And frankly, it should have been done every year as a way of them just refreshing the main characters. Because there's so many tie-ins for other like anime series to change your leaders too, and I love that about the game, but they're kind of dropping the ball on making their own characters stay consistent visually and relevant. The main thing I think they did with Erica is they just kind of de-emphasized the cleavage window here and her skirt being flipped up. Her sword is more reddish. They kind of de-emphasized Arissa's coat. It would be more interesting, I would say, if you were interested in Code Geass, to have the Code Geass characters. It would be more interesting, even if you don't know who these characters are, from Prince Connect Redive, which is not an anime I recognize. These are different leaders, though. And then you have weird ones where this is only a Portalcraft character, which is weird. And then here you only have a Forcecraft, a Havencraft, and a Portalcraft character. And here, when you start getting to these Shadowverse expansions, you only have a Forcecraft and a Portalcraft. And it might make sense specifically why they're throwing in Portalcraft characters, because there haven't been Portalcraft obviously was added fairly late Again, it would be weird to have the Street Fighter characters, but if you like that, when you get back to Rage of Bahamut, which you can buy for 500 gold, so take note, there is no Portalcraft character because I assume Portalcraft was not in existence there. So I could spend nearly half of all the gold that I probably will ever get in the game to get these leaders. It'd be really silly to do that. There is also even more things you can waste your time money on with some of these score reward sleeves and emblems that clearly go back 4 years. But yeah, I'm kind of just meandering now at this point. I don't even know what the point I was trying to make there was, other than I've been left kind of frustrated. Yeah. My guess is that there are 2 more challenges after the one I'm stuck on, and they probably both require you to beat the game. The good news is if I do find the free time to beat them, I can skip the battle after the first victory. You just can't skip it before the first victory. So I guess where that's going to leave us is I made it, I think, to stage 2 somewhat. So we have here Forcecraft, Portalcraft, Swordcraft. Let's make a new deck. I'm trying to learn how to make decks. I don't think that's going to really help me any. Let's make a Runecraft deck, I guess. Particularly with defeating Belphemont. But I still need to learn this lesson, and I need to figure out what I can do with the cards I actually own. It kind of sucks because I changed the mouse settings, and then the mouse settings don't change in this screen. Alright, so here you have Flame Destroyer, which you can spell boost. We have Earth Sigil. So are we going to play Earth Sigil, or are we going to play Spell Boost? We probably don't have a lot of Spell Boost cards to really make this work. And then if you're going to play Spell Boost, probably you don't want to play you probably at that point don't want to do a whole bunch of Accelerate cards. Let's see. And you could try to do artifacts, but I don't think that's likely to happen. Do that. Spells. Let's see. Recover 1 when you play a Machina card. I don't know if I could really play Machina cards. You still are in this weird position with rotation where it really feels like at best you're going to have 25 pages of cards, of each page only being 8. So you're not overwhelmed with cards, which is an interesting idea. Certainly something that I feel like Hearthstone really failed to embrace that idea as much as I think it originally advertised itself kind of like that way, or felt like it was going to play that way. Maybe it never really advertised itself. um, to be that. And Magic the Gathering certainly never advertised itself to be that way. But that does leave this to be more of a game of strategy, kind of like poker. Like, if you think about it, a poker hand, there are 52 set cards in the deck. Here there are 13 pages, maybe 25 pages of set rotation cards in the deck that you can draw. And from those 5 cards that you draw in poker, you make your best hand. Here, it's from the 40 cards that you make your deck in, you draw up to 9 in your hand, and you make your best play each turn. Which, yeah, that does feel more strategic than Magic the Gathering, where in Magic the Gathering, even in a modern instance, you have a very high chance of not having anywhere close to the same cards. You might have 10-20% overlap. So I finally got the Hardened Glass, which, if this one's on the field and this one's on the field, they'll turn into Flaming Glass, which is a 7.77 that does 7 damage to all enemies when it strikes. So it is fairly smart to just have 6 6 cards taken up by that alone. But yeah, we can definitely see, since I'm only putting like 1 copy of every card in the higher up spots, that I really don't have a lot here. Let's see. What are these paper Shinigamis? Oh, they're spell boost cards. Interesting. This would banish a card from your hand, which I don't know if there's really a reason to do that. This draws cards. So I probably need to go back and figure out what can I spell boost effectively, because we are making a spell boost deck. It seems about all you can do. The Natura and the Machina cards, having now played almost all of the main story, it is fairly obvious that they're the second to newest concept, and there aren't actually too many Nature and Machina cards out there, with the fusion cards being even rarer. There's only like 5 cards apparently that have fusion, and that's like the newest thing. So that definitely colors my understanding a lot more as to why I haven't been seeing a lot of fusion cards. Alright. Okay. And so that leaves us at 28 of 40 cards needed. So now I'm just gonna scroll down this route and choose this and put 2 more of those, and see, what's this? This is just banishing an enemy. This is a spell boost character. Banishing enemies is not super useful. Don't tell me I'm gonna have to go through this a second time. Did I play so conservatively in this deck building that I didn't even leave myself options? Guess I did. Alright, fine. I don't like this popping up the now loading every time I mouse wheel, but I guess I won't complain too much about that. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. And I don't know if this is even the cheapest. Destroy an enemy follower card. Wouldn't be surprised if there's actually cheaper ones out there. For simplicity's sake though, we'll just add that. Oh wait, we don't have that. Fine, we'll add another one of those. And yeah, what really sticks in my craw, to use a weird phrase, is the fact that that was really the only deck I could build so far. So I'm really looking forward to potentially having more cards in the next expansion by just opening a whole bunch of packs and then being able to build 2 or 3 different styles of decks for each hero class, because right now I just really can't do it. In the stage 2 I need 3 or more victories, and I think that means in one playthrough. It doesn't mean I can get like 1 victory today and 1 victory tomorrow and 1 victory the next day. And I imagine this is one of those ranked matching things where at the moment I'm playing against people who have 0 victories also. I might even be playing against people who have like 4 losses and 0 victories. But once I get a victory, I'll be playing against other people that have a single victory. And thus, it will be a self-selecting adjustment.
Prepare for defeat.
Let's see. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. And keep this. I guess it is just a interesting question about how fast can one spell boost. And when should one spell boost? Okay. So we are on the verge of no longer really needing to play just Shadowverse. Like, I've got 2, maybe 3 more episodes, and then I can start playing something else. I unfortunately have not scheduled anything, being sick just threw another monkey wrench into that, certainly. Let's see. But I also have some uploads. I'm thinking about in my head the first few steps of building a new computer. I don't think there's gonna be like major improvements, unfortunately, regardless if I built a new computer today or 6 months from now, a year from now. We are in a unique position, certainly, where none of that really changes much. Because I imagine we're not going to be seeing a significant increase in the quality of CPUs or RAM with all of this slowdown of just, you know, the world. For my budget, unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to spend $300 to $600 to try and buy a server chassis, server case that would have like 16 or more hot swap hard drive bays, which is what I'd really like to put my old computer into so that I could put more hard drives in it and to turn my current server into the one that is being transitioned away from being the default usage device. My idea would be to potentially just put 6 big hard drives in a RAID array in my current computer, have it then allow all of the corrupted data that can be restored to be transferred over. Then I can destroy the corrupted RAID on my current server and rebuild as much as possible, as well as possible. That would not be fixing the lack of ECC RAM, which is a shame, but I think that's just something that we would probably have to live with.
Lightning storm.
Breach of contract, huh?
And
Come forth.
but to buy the case is
I'll fry you to a crisp.
just adds such an extra price to it that then I probably, like, I need to buy a new computer case because I want to stop using a particularly old one that doesn't have like USB 3 connections and things like that. One that would be hopefully a little quieter.
How did I lose?
And in that new case, I want to put in a new CPU, motherboard, RAM, and power supply. But I can, of course, put the RTX 2080 into it, and I can put the SSD hard drive, M2 stick, into it, which would leave my old SSD to run the current computer, plus then I could put 6 hard drives into the old computer and turn it into a server, and then I can turn the old server into a different kind of server that is more directly focused just to give hard drive access to the newer server, which I think there is at least 3 or 4 years difference in the hardware there. Yeah. And I might be able to budget doing all of that if I don't buy the case. And if I just put 6 hard drives in my current case, which will work, and it will then, it is the most logical way to go about it.
Don't underestimate.
Certainly is to not waste a lot of money on the least important part, even though I do want the case at some point, just to keep everything nice. If, in all honesty, for the level of my attempts to use the hot swap bays, they actually haven't proven themselves to be really worth that much. So if you were to instead buy one just standard ATX, large size ATX computer case, and if it has like 20 internal hard drive slots, that's probably just as good as hot swap bays, and because of the way the RAID array works, it's less likely that you would actually ever need to on the fly pull out a hard drive for my level of use. And I don't know really where to shop either, because Newegg used to be good back probably about 8 years ago when I was shopping there for computer components. But even then they were starting to get pretty bad and they got terrible once they got bought out by a Chinese company. And Amazon.com, you never want to buy anything from Amazon.com, but their computer components abilities or listings are pretty terrible. There's a weird catch-22 if you try to look at eBay. You have to keep a really tight eye on how much the shipping and handling would be, and are you actually saving any money whatsoever for the risk that you're incurring, which can definitely be it definitely can be a risk to buy things off eBay. Like, theoretically, and certainly this is another thought, instead of building my current PC into a server, I could just get a Drobo, but even when they're like refurbished, they're still fairly expensive and fairly unitasker. I wish there was more of a open source hacker community around Drobos, because that would certainly help. Part of my concern with Drobos is if they didn't have that kind of locked in hardware and locked in software element. Darn it. But yeah, there's a problem with any of those locked in ideas of getting like a Drobo, which also Drobos at best are going to have like 12 hard drive slots, and those are going to be the expensive Pro versions, or a Synology or anything like that. While it may not seem like it's cheaper, when you look at the price tag, it is actually cheaper to potentially buy a $600 computer chassis that has 24 24 hard drive slots, if you're planning on ever having that many hard drives. And I guess that inherently that is the main bigger issue, is that at a certain point I have just hit that level where I am expected to have that many hard drives. And I'd need a ton more. If money was no issue, I would just get a Storinator from 45 drives, which their custom cases hold like 100 hard drives, and one of those, if I could get it bare boned. Although, you know, that is something I should probably look on eBay. But yeah, when you're talking like server room equipment, there's a tendency not to get that cheap, unless you get it fell off the back of a bus discount type thing. So yeah, I'm thinking about buying stuff. I'm not anywhere close to buying stuff. It'd be kind of crazy right about now to be buying anything. because we just don't know where the economy is going and where it's gonna head. If anything, stocking up on essentials and stocking up on anti-riot gear might be your best bet. Yeah, if all of society collapses and I can just walk into an office building or a server collab and walk out with tons of hard drives and stuff because the zombie apocalypse has occurred, well, that would be
Don't
wasteful.
underestimate me.
This one's for my family.
Alright, well, since we're starting late, we should just start covering the video game news. I don't know if there's been too much news. It doesn't look like there really has been. I definitely am in a dangerous position. I have money in my Steam account. I potentially can buy new computer parts. I'm definitely under the danger of getting the itch to spend money, and that I imagine that could certainly happen for a lot of people around Black Friday. Like, if anybody has, if the way a lot of the people who felt like they followed the rules well enough with the masks reacted after barely following it for 2 or 3 months, I imagine there are a lot of people that are just going to do the mental gymnastics around Black Friday and Christmas, say, I've followed the rules, I've been good, I deserve this, even though those people, very same people, may be the ones that are out of jobs and have no income. And at a certain point, there very well may be a case of well, by November, people realize that they can't afford anything, so they might as well just go out with a blaze of glory and buy a bunch of stuff to keep themselves entertained, or just waste the money, run up the debt. So we might have, we'll definitely have less sales than usual in Black Friday, but we might not have as few as we should. Yeah. Let's see. Is there anything else to talk about? It's hard to really even stay up on things when you're sick. I was fairly sick too. Yeah, I was just like woke up with horrible chills and my teeth are chattering, and then major fever. I didn't lose the sense of taste or anything like that. I don't know if that's guaranteed for COVID that happens, so it's uncertain whether this was just a flu or somehow I did end up with COVID. I didn't ever have any breathing problems or anything like that. So if it was COVID that I somehow got, then it was a very light case. Or maybe it'll come back and get me later. But yeah, I was sleeping quite a lot, and this won't make any sense at all, but I kept like waking up and then turning over, and every time I woke up and turned over, I felt like I was forgetting the existence of a concept or a word, like a thought was being dragged out of my head or something. So Like this was some weird, like your sick dream type experience. It's like, oh, yeah, I can feel this concept, this word leaving my head every time I wake up, and then I go back to sleep, and then I wake up again, and it's a different concept or word that's slipping out of my head. Just a general concept of the whole world and the whole universe is disappearing around me. Like with the lack of my consciousness, which might be an interesting like philosophical story to write, but better people have done it. There's like a story of a Buddhist monk who had a dream he was a butterfly, and when he was dreaming that he was the butterfly, he believed the butterfly was dreaming the monk, so he could no longer tell if he was actually the monk, if he was the monk dreaming the butterfly, or if he was the butterfly dreaming the monk. And yeah, that's more philosophy than probably needs to be discussed. I can say Jim Sterling's beating a dead horse, and then complaining that people are saying he's beating a dead horse. But he decides to go on a full attack video, which is just straw manning and picking the worst arguments as far as Abby's appearance, and the problem with Abby's appearance, where I think people have fairly described the issue with Abby's appearance, and he's simply ignoring that, and the fact that Abby, as a character, in general, she's not liked at all, but just in your initial appearance view of her, or before you know anything about her, she is one female bodybuilder's body scanned in with a different female face model with a third different female's voice, and then they went and added more muscles to the bodybuilder, and there is the dissonance in a nutshell. Like, when you make a Frankensteinian monster like that, it's not surprising that people are subconsciously and perhaps very often not very well specific or vocal about why they are off put by that appearance. There are definitely some other problems with Abby's appearance, in the sense that her diet and the world she lives in does not really work towards that concept of her looking as muscular as she does, and it really is just a single creator's fetish, and that's fine, but this really is a subjective opinion. There is no way to tell somebody they have to like the appearance of anyone. There are further conspiracy theories, and I think to a certain point these conspiracy theories are somewhat accurate, that there is a level of SJW weirdos out there that want to attack everything to the point where they've now developed a standard line of attacking anything that would be a traditional or reasonably natural appearance of a female, which they've often used the exact same argument in the past when they see like large-breasted comic book characters saying that's not natural.
Humility quells pride.
And see, that does kind of put me in an interesting perspective. We're still talking about The Last of Us 2, which is ridiculous. But as somebody who said, yeah, the anime girls with the giant boobs and then the moe art style are totally not realistic, and they never were designed to be realistic. It is always been my thought that you don't have to be realistic. So yeah, it's not a problem for me that the developer of The Last of Us 2 that wanted to make Abby look unrealistic made her look unrealistic. It's only a problem now that this inconsistent subsection, I'd say even of the subsection of SJWs, is trying to talk out of both sides of their mouth. When it's an anime girl with big boobs, they hate it and say it's unnatural. When it's a big buff character that could easily be mistaken for a male, they want to say you're somehow morally inaccurate, you're morally wrong by not being attracted by the appearance of a character like Abby. And almost certainly the reason why that has come down is that there's just been so much on the SJW sides where they have, I guess, self-selected themselves and promoted transgender people so much now that they can no longer even they can no longer even see the world without looking through it through that lens, which is what constantly happens with the trans exclusionary radical feminists, as they call them, is that feminists that actually want to only support biological females and want to focus only on those issues have been heavily pushed to leave the LGBTQI plus community, and because the alphabet community there has adopted such a broad base of people that they're trying to support issues on, that they can no longer focus on any one specific issue. Like, despite facts that the NRA is potentially on the verge of being dissolved, the NRA, at the very least in its stated goals, did seem like they had only one goal and one goal only, which was to maintain the ability to own guns, pretty much any and every kind of gun, and they did that mostly through lobbying. Whereas if the NRA merged with like a knife lobby, there would be definitely some different issues. I think people in general would kind of suspect a knife lobby to say, hey, let's get those under 2 inches pocket knives back on planes, because like this is a ridiculous scam. With the new rules and the locked cockpits and all that, there's really no way somebody's going to hijack a plane with a pocket knife. But if you had the NRA and a knife lobby merged together, then the NRA would then start saying, yeah, and we also should allow handguns by passengers on the plane. too, and that's where it starts to get crazy. Is like you cannot have two masters, and the alphabet groups have dozens and dozens of masters, and they kind of fail to support any of them. Well, they really should split up, frankly. They should have like a loose alliance, is what I would say. Is have your loose alliance of support, and support each other's like meetings and groups and things like that, but on the day-to-day points and topics. Although, in all fairness, I don't know what really agency actually exists or organization really exists under the LGBTQIA group either. There may not be an actual anything there. It might just be a nebulous buzzword. And of course we're losing. I'm just going to ignore that. But yeah, that certainly has gotten me on a rant, because Jim Sterling went on a rant. I should stop listening to him. Unfortunately, podcasts have just fewer and fewer of them have been made. Like, people are out of business, as it seems.
Don't underestimate me. I've learned things you will never
One of the
comprehend.
podcasts I was following was This Week in Computer Hardware. Apparently, somewhere around May, that just kind of quietly got canceled, and I didn't even catch it. Several other podcasts have severely slowed down. Several of the YouTubers have slowed down. Dr. Disrespect showed up and started streaming on YouTube. I assume he has some kind of agreement with YouTube and didn't just start streaming, and was negotiating for something like that. I'd never watched Dr. Disrespect, but it is noteworthy that he had a kind of massive amount of people watching him stream. But on the other hand, we have some major issues with YouTube just being like 4 times worse lately. Over the past year, YouTube added the ability to have 2 commercials in every commercial break, and they didn't. It's not an ability. It's pretty much mandatory. I don't think there's any way to turn that off at all. So they doubled the number of videos, and then they once again doubled it now because they've lowered the number of minutes that have to occur between each ad break. So you can just cram videos with ad breaks. And then they automatically added mid-roll ads all over the place. So I don't know how you don't just admit at this point that they are actively trying to just ruin YouTube. Whether this is Susan Wojcicki doing it, or whether it's someone else at YouTube, someone clearly is actively trying to ruin the YouTube experience. And at the core of it, it is the advertisers are actively trying to ruin the YouTube experience, but YouTube is stupidly going along with that, and it's not really benefiting anybody at all. Like, I don't think it's benefiting new big streamers either. I don't think PewDiePie or Dr. Disrespect or any Vivo music video or anything like that benefits from having so many ad breaks. So I eagerly await the day when YouTube goes away and we find a better replacement, if that ever happens. Yes. And then do this. And then see.
Yobby's feeling hungry.
Mana, come forth.
That probably could have been played better, but that's not bad. See, that was the strategy I was trying to implement. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called The Battle of Visby, which looks slightly polished. Like, this doesn't just look terrible. It does look like a medieval game. They're saying it's a walking simulator with quick time events for $1.99. English full audio. I'm gonna put this on the follow list. Like, there might be something to this idea of just a narrative experience. Although at a certain point, I don't know why I'd play this instead of, like, Plague, A Rat's Tale, or whatever that game was. TechRaptor has an article here. The U.S. Army returns to Twitch after poor behavior. Let's see. Let's see if they were punished in any way. Not really. I know the AOC Congresswoman attempted to pass an amendment, but it failed, I think. And it was heavily politicized. I think it really was one of those cases where that got politicized. Like, everything gets politicized, and that really shouldn't have been politicized because there was actual poor behavior on the part of the esports division of the U.S. military. But also, I imagine Twitch didn't want to do anything with that and didn't want to deal with that. If anything, it seems like Twitch, and this is highly speculative, but there is a small bit of evidence that Twitch might be on the way out as a brand. The streaming service itself, I think that technology could easily be split into 2 or 3 different services. I was listening to one podcast that actually still exists where they were talking about how the technology that's like running OnlyFans, if you split that away from the OnlyFans brand and name, you could easily have a like video game site, a new video game site pop up based on the same technology, and nobody would really be upset about that or even recognize it. Let's see, should I make a new unlimited deck? I don't even know what to do here. Let's just keep on trying to play and maintain momentum. But yeah, Amazon.com is, from what I've seen, getting rid of the Twitch Prime, like Twitch Prime. They're rebranding it as Prime Gaming, which definitely feels like there's a split there. I imagine they've pretty much realized that they are done. A lot of these leaders I don't recognize, so I don't know if they were just temporary things that you can't get anymore, or if it's just a matter of I've not been paying enough attention as far as all the unlockable custom leaders. There's one thing I like though, is that you can see like completely different skins, completely different card backs, and each one is at least attractive on a certain level. And then you also have some cards that are fairly attractive, although you also have some that are, I think, from the basic and classic cards that are fairly standard, fairly boring. Tech Raptor has an article here. Microsoft and Facebook push back against Apple blocking xCloud in gaming apps. Inherently, it boils down to Apple giving a BS response saying they want to look at every single game that would be served through a streaming service like xCloud, which also means they want to get a cut for every like DLC and microtransaction that happens. Let's see. And yeah, I don't think that they are really willing to budge on that unless they're forced to budge on that. And so, yeah, don't expect Apple products, iOS products, to support xCloud. To the point where I wouldn't expect any modern, like, MacBooks or like Apple PCs to be able to support that stuff either, because that is the next step here. Almost certainly is that they will stop allowing you to install third-party apps without jailbreaking even your computer. And that's what they've been trying to do, is have a walled garden experience for all of their products. Samsung had their recent announcements for the like next generation of their cell phones, but also the Samsung cell phones now that are getting promoted either have the ridiculous screen folding technology that still doesn't work, or they're just super expensive. Whereas more and more, I think I and most people are getting to a point where we don't really need that much. Like, we don't need the top tier cell phones, because the mid tier and the low tier cell phones are still quality enough that, like, 4 gigabytes of RAM, 32 to 64 gigabytes of storage is pretty much all you need. Getting an extra CPU on a cell phone thread is not going to really help you, or 2 extra CP threads, and they probably aren't even going to offer that. Getting an extra 100 megahertz is not going to affect you much. Oh, one thing that is very interesting is the Retro Flag company for Raspberry Pi enclosures have come out with an updated version of their NES enclosure to put a Raspberry Pi 4 into it, and they've added a cartridge that looks like a Nintendo NES cartridge, and you put in a 2.5-inch SSD or hard drive, if you can find a 2.5-inch laptop hard drive. You put that into the cartridge and you slide it in just like you would a NES thing. It doesn't flap down, but it does snap into a adapter backplane, is what it's called, a connector in the back, that then over USB connects to the Raspberry Pi 4 at, I believe, the USB 3 speeds, which thus allows you to create something that up until this point was a lot more difficult to create, which is a single Retro Pi build with different games for potentially different age groups or potentially different fandoms. With some tweaking to the software, I imagine you can easily put the save files on the hard drive too. You can set the whole thing to boot up on the hard drive, so you could have just entirely different operating systems, so it doesn't have to just be RetroFlag or RetroPie.
Destiny of death, feed me.
So, yeah, it's a real cool design, and it's not that expensive. I'm not sure if I should get it for myself though at this point, though, because at a certain point it is just getting ridiculous, and I don't think there's a way to get a good deal on 2.5 hard drives, 2.5 inch hard drives, and that's what really would destroy.
My oath is eternal. On guard.
Want to play?
The immortal duel too easy.
Yeah. So yeah, looks really nice. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a Raspberry Pi 5 that comes out within the next 16 months, but it very well may not be much of an improvement. Like, there's... That's a weird looking character. Unbodied Witch. Well, that did look like something that had his skin peeled off. When playing the single player, the main story of this, there's a lot of slowdowns from all these effects, but I really don't see it in the multiplayer, so I just think their engine is weirdly programmed.
Here comes some real magic.
This bears further study.
This is like amazing. 2 2020s.
This isn't over.
You're
Can-
too strong.
And like the card back and the sleeve that they just played was the card that I was just defeated with. Moving on. Gamatsu has an article. Menorah for PS4, Xbox One, and Switch launches September 10th update. I've not seen a game called Menorah. Interesting. See if I can recognize what it is. Well, it looks like a kind of dark hack and slash game. Oh, is this the sequel to that other game? I think it is. This is really nicely animated. So what's the update here? Update. Watch a trailer for the console version below. They just added a trailer. Alright. Let's see. Yeah, here's Menorah on Steam, and it's already on my wish list for $19.99. And let's see if I can, if it is referencing the other game that I can't remember the name of. Let's see. Nope.
You must die.
This one's for my
I still
family.
really have a major problem with games not really explaining themselves well enough. Maybe it's not a sequel to the game. No, yeah, they say it's from the creators of Momodora, and that's the game I was thinking about. But it's probably just a spiritual successor to Momodora, which I already own. Jeez, I should really put myself under the challenge. Apparently I also own Momodora 2 or 3. Let's see. See what happened there. Didn't play fast enough. Well, I guess Momodora 2 is not on Steam, or Momodora Reverie Under the Moonlight is a combination of 1 and 2. Maybe having some slight network issues. Let's just move forward. Really just want to burn through this. Really don't even have a ton to talk about, and I've just stretched this out by ranting and going over the same old garbage over and over again. Yeah, really, if I could criticize myself and improve myself, the one thing I would do is I'd say, hey, make some new concepts, make some new ideas. Don't go into the same conversations and the same rants. I definitely remember when I was like in high school and I was talking to a lot of other nerds and geeks, that a lot of them also would go into kind of the same can Superman beat Batman arguments over and over again, and I found those fairly annoying and repetitive. Once you'd heard it a dozen times, there's no reason for it to be brought up again. Also, I would say probably when I was in school there was a lot less new information sources, so there wasn't a lot to talk about. At a certain point you either repeat yourself or you start talking about the weather. In the old days, nowadays you can definitely go down some deep dives and get some new informations. For instance, I just like heard that the I before E except after C rule has 923 exceptions in the English language, more exceptions than it actually is accurate. So it's actually a terrible rule. Moving on, we have Noel, The Mortal Fate for PS4, Xbox One, and Switch, launching 2020, adds a new episode, Season 3.5. This looks kind of like a RPG, but might be a visual novel too. See, it's on Steam. We can get some more information this way. So on the follow list, it is an RPG of some sort. It is also labeled as it looks like an RPG maker, but it seems like it has something special about it for it to be overwhelmingly positive. TechRaptor has this article. Rocksteady is making a Suicide Squad. They tweeted out this image of Suicide Squad with a target over Superman's head. Maybe this is a spot of blood where somebody has actually shot him in the head. Which Rocksteady makes the Batman Arkham series, or they did. Yeah, that's not gonna really work. There could be a twist there, I suppose, where it's a evil version of Superman or a pretender to Superman, where Suicide Squad might actually have a chance of taking out a pretender, someone who's not really bulletproof. But Superman in any video game ruins a video game almost certainly, although maybe not the fighting game, but even then that was kind of weird. Also, if you think about the Arkham series, I don't know how you integrate any of that kind of open world gameplay to Suicide Squad. I don't know what you do with Suicide Squad other than make something like a Hitman game. And they didn't really put a lot of fanfare into it. They just put out this tweet: targets locked, hashtag DC fandom. I guess that's supposed to be fandom, although it has an E on it, so it's fandom. August 22. This almost certainly would have been a big announcement. There's a virtual DC fan event. Yeah, if the Comic-Con had happened, this probably would have been a pretty big announcement around Comic-Con's time. Although they really didn't have a backup plan. And you could certainly take from this that a lot of video game companies have no backup plans for anything, in the fact that they did not have some way to even somewhat announce things that were going to be announced at E3 or otherwise announced at other presentations. And so now they've just kind of sat on their announcements. Although maybe that was the backup plan, and maybe that's a great backup plan in the idea that now they can delay the games and they don't have to make announcements for games that they're just going to have to delay later anyways. Probably saved them a lot of frustration. Yeah, if at the end of this pandemic the one thing that happens is all advertising companies go out of business, that would probably be a nice outcome, since they usually are fairly useless and inept. And only the streamlined, like, actual successful advertising companies stay around. Moving on, we have a game called Crazy 8's Premium, which Crazy 8's is basically just Uno with regular cards. And you can see there are even some variants here that effectively make it look like Uno. Which is interesting because the Ubisoft Uno game is a little greedy and it's not particularly that great. The thing here though is, would people really want to play this? Would there be a fan base? Is it worthwhile to buy this for $6 versus just getting Tabletop Simulator for $19.99 and being able to play a lot of things? And I think at a certain point it probably isn't worth it, because I can't imagine that they're actually offering anything here unique enough. Yeah, it doesn't have any in-app purchases, so I'll grant it that. Like mini rules and variants, I guess if you were obsessed with Crazy 8's, this might be an interesting idea. But I'm not that obsessed with Crazy 8's, so 2 damage to an enemy follower, 3 damage.
It's not enough yet.
Okay. Is this gonna work?
My ally is justice.
It's not enough yet.
And can we evolve something?
You're done for.
A lot of these cards really are just out of nowhere,
Burn.
in the sense that, oops, I attacked wrong. Like this Panther Scout, like the main story that I played could have easily had a Panther Scout character, but you just don't see a Panther Scout character. Maybe in some of the battles I skipped, you see Panther Scout cards played, but that's about it. And they already voice all the cards, so it really wouldn't hurt to potentially have a card like this. Say it's like a character like this, just use the art from the card, just reuse that stock assets and play the stock sound effect, and then it just jump into a battle. That's pretty much all I would have to do. This is such a slow game. If this is just him and not my network, then I should just concede, but who's to say it's not my network? See, next we have on Steam a game called Company of Crime, which is mixed, which is unfortunate because it doesn't look terrible as a turn-based RPG. Like playing as a crime boss or a gang in the 1960s, I think. Doesn't look terrible. It kind of looks like what is that game that they're making a sequel to many years later? Evil Genius? Yeah. Kind of looks like Evil Genius.
It's not enough yet.
Ambush Bane. This. I can attack with this, I can attack with this. Should just
It won't be
evolve
long now.
that. That's probably a waste.
Have eyes behind you.
There is no meaning in power.
Follow my lead.
Hit that, hit that, hit that. End the turn. See what they say about this. There's a game called Real Politics 2, so I don't know if this is just a demo for that game. See, definitely not recommended either. The game is amazing, the gameplay is horrible, everything in the game feels kind of random.
Won't be long now.
Not great, super repetitive missions, some of the 11s are super bottlenecked. Ran into one where I had to knock out 19 cops to get to the exit, ended up jumping me from heat level 1 to heat level 5. Too long, didn't read. An okay XCOM-like game where you lead a small gang in the 1960s UK that falls short in gameplay. Okay, well, it's a shame because that looked interesting. And I guess at a certain point, looking interesting is half the battle. Next, we have a game on Steam called Snow Fighters, which we're a little early for the Christmas games, and I would definitely put this in that category. This looks like a Smash Brothers clone for Snow Fighters, although we've got some unique looking characters and kind of a unique art style for that intro video, but it seems like it's just 6 characters to select from. It's $7.99. It's single player and split screen. It's English and Japanese. If this was a little bit cheaper, there might be an idea here. There might be some justification to this. But frankly, this also feels like something that should have been on a cell phone for free with ads.
Blessed by the heavens.
Behind you.
There we go.
Follow my lead. You're a solid fighter.
So yeah, not gonna put that on the follow list. We may have a. There's so little here. So yeah, this is the old, like pre-4th anniversary depiction of Erica. They have her kind of more Japanese in her appearance. Her hair is wafting up. There's more of an emphasis on this weird cleavage window, and her skirt is flipped up. In the redrawing, they've kind of changed everything. The sword is now red. There's her outfit's a little bit more softer. It's more of a modern style, closer to the moe modern 2020 anime style than this, which even 4 years ago was going more in a older fantasy style. That being said, I would say there still is a decent disconnect between the look of new Erica versus the new appearance of Urias the Vampire. They still don't feel like they're in the same world. And then you have characters like the card characters here that don't look like they're anywhere from the same world or the same artist. It does just feel like there's a lot of different people, a lot of different artists that they hire out third party. And yeah, I don't know if you can hope that a collectible card game would have enough budgeting to have more consistent art, because clearly when they first launched this they didn't think it was going to succeed as well as it has. They hoped for that, certainly, but they didn't know that was the case. Most collectible card games I hear end after the first rotation, after about 2 years.
To arms, brother.
At your service.
Let's see.
Too slow.
So yeah, I guess that is one of the things about the second dinner Marvel card game, assuming it comes out, which I still assume it is going to, and nothing has changed there to make me think different. Yeah, do I want to do something here?
With grace and precision.
No one gets past me.
This is our way out.
Too slow.
But yeah, the second dinner Marvel card game, one would assume, is going to be well funded and very polished from the word go. On the other hand, because it's a licensed property, the perpetual license of the Marvel characters may actually cause it some trouble. Like there is a worst case scenario where it comes out and fails miserably after 2 years because it just cannot afford to continue to pay Disney the licenses to Marvel. On the other hand, who knows what level of desperation Marvel itself will be at, and they may just want any money they can get.
No one gets past me. Too slow.
Or they may have negotiated a no-fee license or a low-fee license that is more attainable. When you think about like the Pokemon card game, that is run by the people who own the license to Pokemon, so they're not having to constantly pay Game Freak and Nintendo a license for every single card that gets printed or made. Let's see. Storm.
Better stand back before you get burned.
Elegant and perfectly stunning.
Do I want to evolve this to give it 4 damage?
Too slow.
Ow!
Could evolve this.
You're done for. I hope you're prepared. Stunningly.
Shutting
Do
down.
that. Yep. Next, we have a game on Steam called The Last Survey, which looks like it's a hand-drawn dystopian visual novel by the tags. Looks like garbage to me for $4.49 English full on you. This is one of those games where it might have a great story, but they clearly don't have the skill set to make it into a game, and they should have just written a story. Retroarch version 1.9.0 has been released. Let's see. You can now have an explore view for playlists. You can see enhanced playlist search functionality, content loading animations, easy drop down list for input remapping, little tricks and tweaks for the ability to play back video and audio. Let's see. iOS and tvOS now support Apple's Metal Graphics API, which that's a big change. And just general menu and improvements. File, input, output, and memory improvements. And that's pretty much it. Now, Retroarch, of course, is just the overlay software to launch cores that then are used to either run an emulated game, run an emulator that emulates the game, or they are used to run some other kind of content like audio or video. I think that's pretty much all it can do. They also say new and improved versions of Dolphin and the Citra cores will be coming soon, and the PSP core is the PPSSPP core is being actively updated, which I assume that's a PlayStation portable core. So little bits of progress. Once again, I think worth mentioning that Retroarch 1.9.0 probably not going to be anywhere close to the version that you use if you're installing like the Raspberry Pi, RetroPie builds, because those are many generations behind, and the modern hardware needed for that just doesn't exist in those devices. Next we have a game here that's just in Asian letters and it's tagged as a visual novel, and it's either kind of a niche Japanese visual novel or it's a Chinese visual novel. It's $1.19, which would make me think Chinese full audio. Chinese. Doesn't look terrible. Does have text on the screen that's a little high and a little in the wrong place for a visual novel. But yeah, this does not look terrible. I guess maybe it's supposed to be world end co-ed. If it's... Let's see. Ambush until the end of the turn. And
Let's have some fun.
What does this do?
Let's have some fun.
So we should hit this first.
You'll never
And
hurt
then
Otohime.
hit this.
You'll
and
never hurt
then this.
Otohime. You'll never hurt
And this.
Otohime. Otohime.
So here's the article I was talking about before. Amazon is rebranding Twitch Prime to Prime Gaming. So, according to an industry leak, which would put it more in lines of such things like Prime Music, which I forgot even existed, and Prime Video, which I did try to use while I was sick. I was trying to watch a movie called Hotel Artemis, and in the TV, which my TV is fairly old, app, it crashed multiple times, and Amazon Prime Video app does crash a lot. Subtitles get stuck almost always, and it was just not a good experience, on top of the fact that I literally just fell asleep halfway through with it, but I think it also crashed before I fell asleep, if I remember correctly. So yeah, Prime Video on my smart TV, not a great experience. I could definitely use buying another smart TV, like a new smart TV. That too would be in the budget of building a new computer Because there is definitely something I would like to try and pull off. To have a monitor that's just closer and easier to see.
I won't let you make us cry. Full power, here goes. You wouldn't. An exemplary battle.
TechRaptor continues their article. What does Prime Gaming rebrand mean? It probably doesn't mean anything until it does mean something, which is to say they'll say it means nothing until right up until the point where they sell off Twitch as a loss. The story has been fairly consistent if we think about it, as far as Twitch getting just kind of perpetually worse and worse as a option. Yeah, it's gotten worse and worse as a streaming option, where people are not willing to go and give it a try, even if they've been kicked off of YouTube. I would much more want to just start streaming directly to Bitly or Library or something than go to Twitch. And the big streamers, the draws, have left kind of in hordes. Meanwhile, Twitch has the problem of having far too many Twitch thoughts on it, which has hurt its branding, whereas at least YouTube is a more varied experience that just has the problem of too many commercials. Very rarely has there been a situation in the past 6 months or so of someone gaining major attention or success by thoughterry, for lack of a better term, on Twitch. If anything, their family-friendly rules have, as draconian as they are, they have proven to be successful and correct. Or maybe not correct. Correct's not the right word. They've been effective. Draconian as they are, they have been effective to stop YouTube from turning into a website where all you have to do is flash some cleavage and you gain success. Of course, they've also kind of effectively made it impossible to succeed on YouTube at all, which is its own problem.
Welcome to the city of hopes and dreams.
Let's see.
Such a shame.
Like, these puppets are a major concept, and they never get explained in the main story. Like, that there's somewhere a city full of puppets.
Sleep peacefully.
Let's see. 5 damage.
What wonderful sleep.
And then do this.
Welcome to the city of nightmares and despair.
Do you know my master?
No! Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Project Knight, which looks like it is an RPG from an isometric perspective with kind of a cutesy polygonal look to it. This could be a student project type game that's not actually finished. It says there's 6 biomes. It definitely looks a little underpolished. It's $3.99. Let's see. It's about 2 hours of entertainment, full audio. So it was made with a Smile game builder engine, which, yeah, frankly, if you're using a game builder engine, that explains why this looks more polished than most. But yeah, there's not enough game here to make this a relevant experience, so that's not going to the follow list. Play this. And that.
Shucks, I done did it now.
Stop!
Yeah, at some point I need to disable that warning. Next we have a game called Cuba 2077, which I assume this is just a troll game of trying to be something like Cyberpunk 2077, which I don't like. There's no description here at all. I don't know what kind of even political or troll statement you can make. This is $4.99 Spain Spanish. Like, if the idea is Cyberpunk is going to be a game that is in part built around capitalism gone insane, which I think will be a theme in Cyberpunk, in that Cuba being a socialist country, what is the argument there that Cuba at the same time will be this paradise? It doesn't really look like that in the game, or that Cuba would have a different types of problems. Yeah, I don't know where that really, what story you really tell.
Light upon the land.
Let's see.
Sleep. Luminescence. Shining hope.
So blue or red?
Next we have a game on Steam called Non-Villa with some Asian names before it. It's probably a Chinese MMO for the look of it. Looks like it's a low effort asset flip. Early access, $9.89. Japanese. I was wrong about the origin. That happens. This game is in Japanese only. I'm sorry about that. It's written backwards, so clearly this developer doesn't even know how to order sentences in English.
Peace in the hearts of all.
Next we have a game on Steam called Total Dark, which clearly is just a Arkanoid clone, a low effort simplistic Arkanoid clone with very few bricks on screen. $1.69 English only. Wow, this would have been an easy stream day if I hadn't artificially stretched the length of it. Well, I don't even know how to talk about this, but there was a link from, I believe, ScumVM showing off this story and talking about the first prototype from LucasArts as far as their first talkie game. It looks like it's a kind of, what would you call that? A retrospective experience? I don't ever understand this deck that has you put artifacts in your deck, because it doesn't like fully compute.
Salvation surely awaits.
Accept harmony.
One of the things I think is worth mentioning is you have Nexus here in Larissa's body. In the main story, she gets kidnapped right at the prologue before even the first chapter, and they have never gotten back to that story. In fact, instead of fighting Nexus and defeating her and saving Larissa, they introduced a different character on the same power level as Nexus named Nerva, and they've been going for 9 episodes now, fighting Nerva sort of, but not directly, and Nerva has kind of failed miserably to be an interesting bad character also, and they haven't defeated her. So instead they introduced Belphomat, who is getting power from Nerva, and in the 9 episodes it seems like they barely are gonna let you defeat Belphomat. So it's just been a really, really long experience, as it were, for trying to actually have a satisfactory ending.
Victory through steel.
See, well, there's like the only thing I could think is that these cards that put in artifacts were supposed to start and disable resonance,
All together now.
but they don't think that, like, I don't think that really has done it. Next we have a game on Steam here from P-Cube Limited called Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? Infinite Combat, based off of the anime called Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? This is the anime or video game spin-off of the anime where the main character here has this like goddess character that lives with him and is kind of lazy, and she had the very popular boob ribbon where it's a blue ribbon around her shoulders that acts as a bra, and I don't think they ever really mention it, and she kind of has a secret crush on him, on the main character, who has a secret crush on this blonde character with the weird armor that does not cover half of her boob for some reason. There's a running theme here. That's about as far as I saw in the first season. It's not a bad anime, and it's nowhere as perverted as it might seem at first glance. If anything, I would say that the main character is such a wimp that he wouldn't ever be able to actually end up with a girl. One of the characters that's being depicted here, this one in the, oh, I'm not showing it. See if I can show her. This one here, this character, is like a thief who robbed him, and he treated her so nicely anyways that she decided to be a loyal assistant. As for this actual game though, you can see it's mixed, as a lot of anime spin-offs are. Like, this character is not in his party, and there's just like one dungeon with many levels, and he's just trying to get further and further and become a better adventurer, and he's a really low level adventurer. She's a very high level adventurer and constantly has to kind of save him. She doesn't adventure at all. I don't even know who that character is. Don't know who those characters. Oh yeah, I think these are the other goddess characters, and all the other god characters have like giant temples and entire clans that pledge their fealty to them, and they are able to imbue like magical power onto the people, whereas she only has like one follower. She's super weak. But yeah, like most anime crossover games, it's probably overpriced at $31.99. English, Chinese, and then full audio Japanese. We can jump down here. Let's see. No controller support, terrible default keyboard controls, incomprehensible input rematted, no return to default keyboard binding, freezes in big picture mode, worst laid out controls ever. I mean, it's really bad. So there's major complaints here of a lack of controller support, which they should have caught that in QA testing. But at the core of it, this game does look like it is just a dungeon crawler that's going to have cutscenes from the anime, and you'd be better off just watching the anime. You're not going to get anything special from playing the game. On the other hand, I think it's worth mentioning that Persona 4 Golden is super positive, and Sega has come out and said that they are going to think about porting more old games to PC. So the major success here for Persona 4 Gold has succeeded. That being said, I have not seen anybody try to cover Persona 4 Gold on YouTube, and I don't know if Atlas is still just going to Content ID and claim and copyright strike anybody trying to play even their old games and review them, which makes it a very hard game to then justify trying to play, and that makes it a hard game to try and justify to own. At a certain point, why would I want to support a company that isn't going to let me be critical of their games or play the game the way I want to play it, to say the very least.
Oh, Serpent King.
Next, we have a game on Steam here called Wuthugil, which looks like it's an asset flip, like Rocket Jump Quake clone. Like, I could call it a first-person shooter, but I kind of am getting more of a Quake clone vibe from it. Guess it really doesn't matter which it is. It still looks terrible. It's $5.99 early access. Full audio in Turkish. Interesting. Interesting choice. Now I've been distracted looking at a game called Together B&B, which apparently is a dating sim game. Well, it's not tagged as having any adult content in it. Let's just mention this. It's not out yet, but look at the 3D models here. Somebody bought the good stuff. It's still probably an asset flip game. It still seems like you're just walking around in a bed and breakfast, or like, I don't even know whether you'd call this a bed and breakfast or whether you would call this just everybody sharing one cabin. Very nice looking cabin. You can definitely see in the body model of some of the characters that they've been elevated in the cleavage size. Need to remember to play. Next, we have a game on Steam called Night Bewitched 2, which looks like an RPG game. It's tagged LGBTQ+, which arguably I think that tag is going to be somewhat useful. They have some public spring bathing. They're saying it's a Yuri-style JRPG featuring a story group of heroines and mercenaries as they work together to restore the Lost Kingdom and face a new threat. Yuri means girl on girl, which I guess means that this is a girl, although that, again, very muscular, very masculine looking girl there, but I guess that is the case. English only, looks like an RPG Maker game, selling for $7.99. I don't see there's anything special there. Here, we can banish that and stop its last words from activating. And we can evolve this and take this guy out.
Life's fate is thus.
I really only have about 7 more tabs, but I imagine I'll have to go through my Twitter feed a second time. TechRaptor has an article here. RimWorld 1.2 update debuts custom playstyle system. Which, okay, I don't think I care about RimWorld, but I'm sure somebody out there does. So, I'll leave it at that. See. Next we have a game that came out called Drill Deal Borehole Alpha, which I never thought for a second that a Roblox looking voxel offshore drilling rig would be an idea for a game, and after having considered it for half a second, I still don't think it's an idea for a game. Now, I have seen in Raft there is a point where you get to something like this and it's a decent location to salvage parts from, but that's pretty much I would say is that's all it's probably worth, is any excuse of a location. So they want this free to play, English full audio, but it's also a demo for a different game called Drill Deal.
This is not the end.
So that's why it's free to play. Next we have a game on Steam called Infernal Radiation, which might be an RPG game, or it might be just well, they're tagging it as a bullet hell game. That's interesting. There's a lot of blood and a lot of effects happening on the screen, making it hard to see what it really is. Let's see, this probably would be a game that would benefit if I could actually watch the video. It's early access. It's $8.49. Apparently Scooby-Doo inspired them, so they're putting up copyrighted images of Scooby-Doo, English and a bunch of other languages. Alright, so let's give it like one more game, and we've not made 3 victories. We're still running into this problem where try to play unlimited, you try to play rotation, you try to play any unranked, you still don't guarantee 3 victories at my current deck builds. I'm gonna have to, and the good news is I probably will accomplish this by the end of this week. I'm gonna have to just go online and see what the current meta decks are and see what I can build that's even close to the current meta decks, because there's clearly no winning without it. The default decks, the suggested pre-built decks, are not in line with the current meta of the game. Yeah, I don't know about this game, Infernal Radiation, even after watching the video, so I'm just going to put it on the follow list. We'll see what happens. It's kind of an interesting name, but the game itself actually does leave a lot to be desired visually, as far as depicting what the game actually is. Next we have a game on Steam called Heiser Sky, which looks like it's a disc golf game, and yeah, it just doesn't look detailed enough to be interesting. I'm not sure I'd want to play a disc golf game at all. And if I was going to play a disc golf game, I think I'd probably want to play it in VR, particularly if it was $13.49 like this game. This is English only. So yeah, that's not impressive enough to make it to the follow list. TechRaptor has an article here. You can now play the only game starring Tarantino, Penn and Teller, and directed by Spielberg. What game is it called? This is Steven Spielberg's Director's Choices, a terrible 90s CD-ROM FMV title, and made it into an interactive movie like Netflix's Bandersnatched, which apparently, which apparently was something that existed. It's pretty short, but I might check that out. Probably isn't much of a game, because the thing there is, if it was if it was remarkably bad, people would still be talking about it. If it was remarkably good, people would still be talking about it. So it must be mediocre. I wouldn't inherently say Penn and Teller are a mark of quality being in a game. Their relationship with video games, if anything, is a mark of lack of quality. And I wouldn't say Tarantino and Spielberg are particularly large marks of quality. I don't think Tarantino ever made anything related to a video game that was good, where Steven Spielberg had influence on the point-and-click adventure The Dig. I think he wrote that, and he promoted heavily Boom Blocks, and certainly he supported LucasArts in several instances, gave his licenses for like the Indiana Jones point-and-click adventure games and such, but I don't know if he had any actual involvement with any of that.
I walked the edge.
Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Rainy City Pandemic, which looks to me like it's just a low effort MS Paint visual novel. Just doesn't look interesting at all. $5.94, which is a weird price for a 15% discount, in English only. Yep, don't see anything there of interest.
I am the guardian of the sky. Let's see. Next we have a game called Meal Mates, which has a creepy video and creepy imagery. So this is just trying to be creepy and off-putting. But at the core of it, it still looks like it's drawn in MS Paint or hand-drawn, and it just looks terrible. $14.99 makes it way overpriced with no discount and English only. So this is one of those games that could easily be dismissed, even if it is just trying to be avant-garde and there actually was some quality there. They've dropped the ball with the pricing. I'm about to lose because he's just gonna wreck me. If he can get rid of this guy, and this guy, I might as well concede, because there's no coming back from that. Next we have a game on Steam here called Poco Inn, which looks like it's an asset flip game where you're running around as an anime girl shooting things. Although she's hardly in the standard anime girl outfit of scantily clad high fashion. But the core of the game looks pretty boring and pretty unremarkable and ugly. It's free, so I guess the price is right. It's a maze game. Remove objects with a revolver. It's being compared to Dead Space 2 and Tomb Raider. That's a terrible comparisons. Seems like it's keyboard only controls. Let's see.
Calamity is born again!
Unbelievable! No!
TechRaptor has an article here. EA Access on Steam will lack a premium option. Let's see what that really means. They have fully unveiled the subscription service EA Access that will be coming soon to Steam, who are their competitors in the online game storage space. Those who subscribe to EA Access will receive rewards for their dedication, different ways to play, and the ability to try new games because of the subscription, and a 10% discount for EA digital purchases, which range from full games to DLC. I wonder if the slight tweak that they did to Steam, where you can automatically give certain customers a discount, was implemented for something like EA Access. The EA Access Premier is not included, which means that that's exclusive. EA Origin Access Premier costs $19.99 a month compared to the basic variant, and includes full access to upcoming games as opposed to 10-hour trials, access to the Premier Vault, which has more games than the basic version, and extra content that's included with new EA games, which means microtransactions and expansion packs are included with your Premier service. So maybe they're getting rid of the Premier service, or maybe they're just not letting people through Steam have that extra service. Take your pick. I can't really imagine too many people care, though, as it were. So I got some more animated basic cards, and we have 30 rupees because I won once and I got my score up to 1500. Still not making great levels of success, and I really wish I was on a monthly basis. Yeah, I'd really have to grind quite a bit to potentially get up in ranked, and I'm not succeeding well at that at all. Let's go in and open a pack while we're here. This is just a trailer, but Gamansu has the remothered Broken Porcelain Asherman Residence trailer, and you can see really polished visual graphics, although I would say the hair could probably use some more detail. Imagine this is a trailer that just shows a bunch of people and explains kind of the remothered story a little bit more, which it definitely looks like more of a interesting horror story than what we typically see, where there's basically nobody in the world at all. I think Remothered Broken Porcelain, though, is the sequel to another remothered game, so I guess I'd need to catch up before playing that. And then Gamma Sutra has a blog here that I was thinking I was going to use as a rant, but I'm not going to particularly go too deep into it since we're pretty much done here. They have an article here, How to Usher More Women into Leadership Roles Within the Game Industry. And without reading any of this, at a certain point, I'm just going to say there is this issue that has been a consistent issue ever since women were given jobs during World War II, or allowed to take jobs during World War II, I guess is a better way to describe it, and then summarily demanded to quit their jobs for the men who returned from World War II. That there's been a lot of women's studies in colleges and pushed by like super liberal professors that don't know anything about the real world as far as the work environment or anything like that. I would respect a real scientist and a professor that has sent out thousands of surveys, sent out some observers, observe themselves, really knows what the actual work environment is and can really speak to that subject. But like most college professors, those who can't teach, they stay in their offices, they live in their own little university fantasy land. They have no idea what reality is. And so my point in this is Gamma Sutra and journalists in general are dangerously approaching the point where they can propose any number of ideas to improve the situation. But at the end of the day, I don't ever really believe that they fully understand the reason why it is the way it is, why there are fewer women working in the video game industry, when, to me, personally, my opinion, it's blatantly obvious that women are just smarter than men, and they don't want to put up with crunch, and they don't want to put up with hostile work environments that are created for all employees in the video game industry, like crunch, overwork, low pay. I feel like women have better opportunities and are smart enough to take those better opportunities, and they don't typically, just on average, women don't have that obsessive nature that men tend to have, where they will just stick with a job and they will never quit and they will never look for a better job because they've been told that they just need to man up, as it were, that toxic mentality, and they're supposed to just live with any kind of frustration, and they're supposed to just keep on working at it, and at one point they'll succeed. There have been women in the past in some companies, certainly, and there definitely, as we're seeing with Ubisoft, there have been some companies that have actively been disadvantaging women. But at the core of it, we don't need another women's studies professor type person, or in this case, video game journalists who are all SJWs, proposing solutions that won't solve anything. Because at the end of the day, particularly from SJWs, their solutions are all the same. It's either we've got to deplatform or censor everybody because we can't actually change anybody's minds on the basis of our arguments, because we can't actually make valid arguments or good arguments because our points are weak, or we just have to effectively brainwash and change the minds of the few people that we can brainwash and change the minds of, to have people step down, have men step down and hand over their jobs to women, which also won't really happen in the real world, or they're just going to make similar useless suggestions that just won't ever work, and then they're just going to, much like Jim Sterling, beat a dead horse. And oddly, the one secret way to get more women in the video game journalist industry that they've done, and they don't want to admit, is they've redefined women, and the vast majority, I wouldn't say majority, but a larger percentage than is statistically average and balanced of video game journalists have transitioned from male to female and are calling themselves women, way more than I think they admit. I think a lot of them also don't like chemically transition or surgically transition at all. They just transition in the way they present or the way they want to be referred to as, which at a certain point, that's where the trans exclusionary radical feminists get upset, because you're not really putting a biological female in a leadership role in the video game industry if you're just having a male convinced claim to be female. Although it is also, in the bigger picture, an argument to say, why is that important? Like, don't you really want the best person for the job? Like, isn't a major problem in the video game industry right now the fact that there is just far too many garbage games? So if we want anything, we want good game developers in those positions before anything else. as a consumer, that's what I want, at least. And I'll leave it at that, so that doesn't evolve into a huge rant. I think that was a fairly coherent and balanced rant. And that brings me to the Humble Bundles store. And I don't see anything here. And then that will bring me back to my my Twitter things. Meanwhile, what do we have here? This may be the second copy or the first copy I've had of this card. It's probably the second copy. This is like the 5th copy of that card. This is the 5th to 10th copy of that card. This is the 5th to 10th copy of that card. This may be the 3rd copy of this that I have in an animated format. That there is something a bit slimy with Shadowverse. They're actually fairly generous, but they kind of do perform some trickery here, as far as it looks like you have a lot more cards than you actually do, or you're a lot closer to getting a complete collection than you actually are, because the chance of getting legendary cards are just so crazy low that you will potentially have to open 400 packs just to get a complete collection, whereas you'll probably have 25 to 30 duplicates on the bronze tier of cards, and they don't turn into enough vials to really matter. This might be the first contemptuous demon we've gotten. They still haven't put any English language on any of those. And then this might be new. Authoring tomorrow. And it's animated. Interesting. So let's look at our cards and see what. I have like 49 pages now of 144 pages, but those pages will also change and grow with the more animated versions that exist. And yeah, this is the first animated version of this, but I have 6 copies of it unanimated. It would be nice if there was a hard limit there, where after you get 3 copies, you're guaranteed an animated version on the 4th draw, 5th draw, and 6th draw. And then it would be really nice after the 6th draw of getting 3 animated copies, you no longer get any copies until you have a complete collection. Here, in direct opposition to that, I have 1 animated version of this and 1 non-animated version of that. Let's see. YouTube creators 10 minutes ago tweeted that you should make videos for social change. Blah blah blah. How about you just make good videos and put them on YouTube and entertain people, because that's what people need right now. The best social change you could possibly do right now is just keep people from going crazy, and keep them entertained. Yeah, and that was all that was new. Well, that was a short journey. Control leaks all confirm in Xbox Series S, which I guess this is just more name confusion, because I've seen this announcement 2 or 3 times and only now do I actually understand what that means. Because there was an Xbox One S version, and the newest version is the Xbox Series X, or just almost certainly going to be referred to as Xbox X. So Series S is going to be the cheaper version, I imagine, of the Series X, and they're getting rid of the 1 indicator. But their naming system is terrible. It's 10 days until Microsoft Flight Simulator comes out, if anybody cares, really. Or I imagine the people that do care about that know that's that's happening. And yeah, I'm looking down my Twitter feed and I'm not sure there's too much going on. Gigabyte's Aorus line of gaming hardware, laptops, and motherboards, I believe. They have a thing where if you buy their equipment, you get a $50 Steam card, which actually a $50 Steam card is way better an offer than a free game, because half the time the free games are through Good Old Games or some other service. Like the last two times I've built anything and gotten a free game, it has been for either the Epic Games Store or the Good Old Games, which sucked. So that's an offering. And I think I want to pat myself on the back a little bit here, because at any point, I may in the future, but I'm trying really hard to not beg for people to friend me on Steam and gift me like Steam credit so that I could spend like $100 to $150 in premium currency on this game to get a bunch of skins and things like that, or pre-built decks. Like the pre-built decks are the ones that have the most legitimacy there, just getting cards that way. But having just been banned from Magic the Gathering Arena unfairly, which I imagine I could log back into that account now, it was only a 7-day ban, but I'm not going to even bother to try. The idea of putting any money into it is kind of an insane idea. And if someone was to gift me a gift card on Steam, it would make a lot more sense to buy a full game than to buy premium currency. Unless people just absolutely wanted me to open packs and with premium currency or something like that. So yeah, I'm gonna try to not beg for that, and I'm going to try in general to get some victories. It's still fairly frustrating. It's definitely no fun to have spent 5 hours between midnight and 5 a.m. this morning trying to get the solo mission done and failing at that miserably, and then do a 2-hour stream here, which you basically got. I don't think I got more than 2 or 3 victories today. I need to put some more effort into this. I need to build more decks. The good news is I have 2 or 3 more hours of solo content to record, then I can just focus on actually getting good at the game. Regardless, that's it for the stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.